Welcome to another episode of A Breath of Fresh Jacob, where I'm wearing a new shirt because I didn't get to go to MagFest and I had to buy clothes for it. It's a whole thing. Just don't worry about it. I wanted to go to MagFest, man. I like this shirt. It's long sleeve, so it's kind of warm in here for me right now, but I'll get over it. What I'm not going to get over is today's question, which is brought to us by V's Knees and asks, escort quests, can they be done right? That was one question. You did it. I'm so proud. So escort quests, can they be done right? As much as I would like to joke and say no, yeah, they can. Just coming up with a bunch of examples of why they can would be a very weird video, so I'm going to try my best to not do that. Actually, you know what? I'm going to start with a bad one because it's right in my head. You ever play GoldenEye? Nintendo 64? The control level where you have to guard Natalia as she like hacks the shit and guards just keep coming and coming and coming, and if they shoot her, she dies and you gotta restart the whole level. Yeah, that's a bad example of an escort quest. You might be saying, well, that's actually a tower defense quest because she's not moving. Well, you have to escort her there in the first place. So the big issue with that is not only do you have like the fear of death for her, because you can defend yourself fairly well. I mean, at that point of the game, you're near the end of the game, you're pretty used to the controls. It's not that bad, except for that one room that has all the turrets that'll turn you into Swiss cheese like that. That sucks. But the fear is that she doesn't have as much health as you do. A few shots and she's dead, which is going to lead to a massive amount of loss of progress because games like that don't have checkpoints. So you had to go all the way back to the beginning of the level if she dies, and that just really, really sucks. That's why escort quests can be so nasty, is because the fear of loss of progress. You know, you're having to escort someone, which means usually you're having to defend them. And if they run out of health, or you don't do a thing fast enough, yada, 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 they die, and you have to restart the whole sequence, which makes you have to redo everything. It's a waste of time, and nobody likes having their time wasted. Also, a problem that I personally have with escort quests is usually they move really slow. You walk at fast speed, and they're just like, and it sucks. I want them to go as fast as I do. Now, that isn't always the case. Sometimes they do move as fast as you do. And actually, I want to give credit to Final Fantasy XIV for that. In Endwalker, you do have some escort quests where it's just a standard quest. There's no combat or anything. You don't really have to worry about loss of progress. But you'll have one of your NPC friends following you. And you can, like, talk to them at certain points to get extra lore and extra backstory and get their thoughts on what's going on. And I think that that's really, really cool. And technically it is an escort quest, even though you aren't really doing anything. There's no risk of death. There's no timer. There's no nothing. You just do it, and it works. And I think it was done really, really well. If I had to give an example of a game that is very, very deeply ingrained with escort quests but does it correctly, I would have to say BioShock Infinite. You're escorting Elizabeth throughout most of the game, and she doesn't take damage. You don't have to worry about her getting kidnapped or dying or anything like that. She's just there. She's just an integral part of the game that you get used to having there, and you don't have to like focus on her or anything. And occasionally she'll throw you guns. She'll throw you health. She'll throw you MP. I can't remember what it's called in that game. She'll actually help you throughout the game. That's really good. It gives you an incentive to want to keep her alive, but you don't need to because she does it herself because she's a badass. So I think that one's a really good example of how escort quests can be done well. And her AI isn't terrible. That's the problem, like I mentioned, with like slow walking and everything. A lot of the times with escort quests, the NPCs that you're escorting have really terrible AI. They'll walk the wrong direction. They'll stand there for no reason. They'll walk toward the bad guys and start getting shot. Like, they do a lot of stupid things. Elizabeth's AI is pretty decent. Some of them are good, some of them are bad. Depends from game to game. You know how it goes. You know, thinking about it from the other point of view, just thinking about BioShock. What about like BioShock 1 and 2 where you have to like get little sisters, right? It's almost like the little sisters are having their own escort quest with their big daddies, and you're the bad guy trying to steal them. Granted, depending on how you approach the game, you're the good guy or you're the bad guy because you might kill them to rip out their slug. And man, BioShock's kind of fucked up now that I think about it. Anyway.
Look, Pim, I know it's our job to help this guy and everything, but I think this guy's a lost cause. He's obviously made up his mind. Why don't we just cut our losses and get out of here?
That's kind of interesting. It gets you to see it from like the other point of view. Except in BioShock 2, when you like have one on your shoulder and then you gotta like drop it down for them to like absorb the atom from a particular dead body, and you gotta like defend them, and that turns into a whole thing as well. That's kind of but you know, I still think Infinite does it best, but it's kind of interesting to see how it's really been a thing throughout that whole series, just in different ways each time. It's kind of fascinating. Yeah, actually, another one that I can think of is, oh god, I actually can't remember if it's A Link Between Worlds or A Link to the Past. When you go into the thief's hideout, and then the thief follows you like all the way back to the entrance, and there's like puzzles you couldn't solve on your own that you needed them to help you with. That's a cool way to do an escort quest. And also, you know, of course, the enemies are trying to catch them, and you have to stop them. It's not really that bad because the enemies move really slow. There is, of course, that fear of loss of progress, but it's not too bad. But I think that's an example of a pretty well-done escort quest. Man, Zelda's actually got a lot, if you think about it. I mean, hell, look at Jabu Jabu in Ocarina of Time. You're escorting Princess Ruto, and you throw her at enemies. I mean, she can't really die. You don't really have to do much except carry her. while she just moans and bitches. Man. What an ass. Anyway, Wind Waker. Hell, Wind Waker, the Earth and Wind Temples. Technically, they're escort quests. You're escorting your friend, whether it be Medley or Makar. You also get to take control of them with the command melody and get to experience slight different changes in gameplay. It's not much, but it's a little slightly different, and you get to do things involving them. It's kind of cool. I don't like those temples because, but it's kind of a cool concept, right? See, remember when I said I wasn't just going to give examples of good and bad, and then I ended up making the whole video examples of good and bad? Oops. I guess you're going to have to deal with it. You can blame it on the new shirt. That's what I'm going to do. I blame the new shirt. I think that's about it, actually. But good question, because escort quests, most people don't like them. But there are occasionally good ones. And I think it's important to remember that. So, good question, V's. Good question. So that's it for me. Like it, subscribe, share it, all that shit. You know what to do by now. I'm going to go get a bottle of water, because my throat's feeling scratchy. So, yeah, thanks for watching. And just remember, Bell's Frogs, Big Cherries, Peter Pan, Magic Cheese, Sephiroth. We'll see you next time. That's the dumbest thing I've ever done. And I don't care. Have fun.